Hi everyone, welcome again to the Bible Project, and this is episode 25 of season 2, our series working through the book of Genesis. We're still going through these few studies looking at God's design for marriage, and you'll remember in the last few episodes I've made some points, 4 so far, which have said firstly that God is the creator of marriage. Secondly, he intended it to be between two people. Then thirdly, he also intended it to be between a man and a woman. And in this time, what I would suggest is that this text tells us that the purpose of marriage was to create a model for family. We've been told here that a man shall leave his father and his mother and join to his wife. Now, I really like the old King James translation of this, maybe because it's the one I grew up with, where it says he shall cleave unto his wife. So he's leaving his parents and he's cleaving, he's been joined to his wife. And that, I say, is of course the beginning of a new family and a new family relationship. God's ideal model for a family is a mother and father and perhaps children later if they come along. And even before sin entered the human race, that was God's plan. That's how he intended it to be. But although God says that a man and a woman are to be joined together in these verses, you'll notice it doesn't at this stage mention children. This tells me that a man and a woman can of course be a complete family without bearing children. A couple can be a complete family even without children. I believe then that what this does suggest is that when a couple are married, their primary role is to be a partner and to complement their husband or wife. And while I believe that to be true, I also believe that God did intend that in usual circumstances the marriage place should be the place where families are created with children. But although recognizing the family unit is where we would normally expect to create and nurture children, and that's God's plan, there are many different circumstances and situations where that turns out not to be the case for a married couple. Continuing the text in Genesis 1 verses 27 and the first half of 28, it says this: So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them and said to them, Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth and subdue it. So in chapter 1, when God created humans, he intended them to multiply and populate the earth. But in chapter 2, when specifically defining marriage, it doesn't particularly mention it. Which tells me that marriage, as defined in the Bible, is for more than just the procreation of children. It's also for friendship, companionship, supporting and working together. And that would also tell me that within the definition of marriage, God allows couples to decide whether they should have children or not. Although sometimes we'd say that God may sovereignly overrule those plans, as a lot of married couples have discovered. One more final observation, and probably the most important thing I can say about marriage, is what we look at next time. I hope you'll join us then. Okay everyone, that's it for this time. Now the place to go for all the links to this ministry and other ministries and podcasts that I do is the podcast notes section of this podcast on the Buzzsprout website. There you'll find links to the Facebook page, my YouTube channel, the sister podcast, the Living in Faith Everyday podcast, and also links even to my SoundCloud page where I create the background music and sound design for this podcast. And there's also, even if you're that way inclined, a place where you can support the podcast and the other ministries to the tune of £1 a month, which really helps with the funding and costs of doing this. But other than that, I really trust you've been blessed by our time together, and I hope to see you all here again very soon.